All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the Alaska summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. A meeting that ended with no deal, but somehow a victory lap. Let's try and decode the deal that wasn't.
So how does this happen? You have a summit that officially produces zero agreement. The verdict is literally, we didn't get there. And yet, President Trump calls it a 10 out of 10. This is the huge contradiction at the heart of this thing. The world was hoping for a ceasefire, but what it got was, well, a puzzle. Let's figure out what really went down.
You know, while Trump was celebrating, a lot of foreign policy experts were seeing this completely differently. From their perspective, this was a clear strategic win for Putin. He got this big, prestigious meeting on U.S. soil without having to give up a single thing.
To really understand this disconnect, we have to rewind. Let's go back to the couple of days right before the summit. It was a mad scramble, with European leaders trying to get on the same page and make their demands perfectly clear.
I mean, look at this. In the final hours, it was just a whirlwind of diplomatic activity. It all leads up to this one super important video conference. You've got Zelensky and the European leaders basically laying out their unified demands for Trump right before he gets on that plane to Alaska.
And their message could not have been clearer. Europe laid down 5 non-negotiables, and they were hammering home the point that a ceasefire was the absolute #1 priority. And the core principle behind it all? Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Simple as that.
So, with that European consensus in his back pocket, Trump goes public with a really tough stance. He heads to Alaska with his very clear warning for Putin, which, set the expectation that something big was about to happen.
So you've got all the pageantry, right? There's a red carpet welcome for Putin. They even share a ride in the presidential limo. It all looks great. But the official outcome, after almost 3 hours of meetings, totally stark. The ice in Alaska, well, it stayed frozen.
And there it is. The single most important goal, that #1 priority that European leaders had pushed so hard for, was completely off the table. No pause in the fighting, period.
So why? Well, here's why. Putin just did not budge. He held firm to these long-standing, what they call maximalist demands. And these conditions, let's be honest, were a total non-starter for Ukraine and its allies. So that guaranteed a stalemate. No deal was ever going to happen. So with no deal on the table, the world is left to just interpret what happened. And almost immediately, 3 very, very different stories start to form. And this is really where the story splits into 3. For Trump, it was a huge success. For the foreign policy experts, it was a clear win for Putin. And for Europe and Ukraine, honestly, it was cautious relief, like they dodged a bullet. 3 players, 3 completely different takes on the exact same event.
Experts like Melinda Herring were basically arguing that Putin played his hand brilliantly. I mean, he got a one-on-one meeting with the U.S. president, he kind of ended his international isolation, and he did it all without making a single concession. That lets him project strength back home and on the world stage.
So what do you do when you don't get the ceasefire that everybody was expecting? Well, you change the goalposts. Trump's team quickly reframed the whole thing. It wasn't a failure, you see. It was actually a deliberate choice to aim for something much bigger, a huge, comprehensive peace agreement that would end the war for good.
So, where does all this leave us? The Alaska summit might be over, but it really just kicked off a whole new chain of events. And that's what's going to define the path forward from here. So, the diplomatic ball immediately starts rolling toward Washington. President Zelensky is now scheduled to get his turn to speak directly with Trump. And at the same time, people are floating this idea of a bigger 3-way summit. All while that threat Trump made before the summit of severe consequences for Russia is just kind of hanging in the air. So, after all the theater and the spin, the world is left with this one fundamental question. The summit didn't produce a deal. We know that. But did it, maybe by accident, maybe by design, actually set the stage for one? Or did it just make the path to peace a whole lot more complicated than it was before?